My in-laws mocked my job and sabotaged my wedding plans, so I cancelled everything, bought a beach house, and sent them the invite to watch from afar. I'm a 28-year-old woman, engaged to the love of my life, and for a while, planning our wedding felt like the happiest chapter of my life. I'd always pictured this season as a blur of flowers, late-night Pinterest boards, and laughing with family over cake samples. Instead, it became a slow grind of biting my tongue while my soon-to-be in-laws sharpened theirs. At first, it was the small digs, his mother's tight little smile when I mentioned a client project, his father's raised eyebrow whenever I explained that yes, freelance graphic design really is a career. So, basically a hobby, his mum would murmur, just loud enough for the table to hear. Each time, the air in the room thinned until I could feel my own heartbeat against my ribs. I'd steal a glance at my fiancé, hoping for a quick defense. Sometimes he'd shift uncomfortably, clearing his throat like words were coming. But they never did. He'd just squeeze my knee under the table, a silent plea to keep the peace. The wedding binder I'd once carried everywhere started to feel heavier than it should, its pages full of colours and fonts no one seemed to care about. Their comments burrowed under my skin like splinters. Real professionals, real jobs, real stability. One evening, after another joke about how a beach wedding was cute for a hobbyist budget, I caught myself rehearsing retorts in the bathroom mirror, my hands gripping the counter so hard my knuckles went white. That night, as I stared at our neatly pinned seating chart, a quiet dread settled in. If they were this dismissive now when the big day was still months away, what would they do once the spotlight was theirs? The thought wouldn't leave me, and for the first time, excitement gave way to something colder, a creeping certainty that the worst was yet to come. It happened over Sunday dinner, the kind of meal where every dish looked like it had been plated for a magazine and the conversation hummed just below polite. I was halfway through my roasted chicken when my future mother-in-law set her wineglass down with a soft clink and said, almost offhand, "Well, I suppose it's impressive she makes anything as a freelancer. What is it? Maybe 30 grand a year?" The clatter of forks around the table was immediate. A cousin coughed. Someone's chair scraped. My cheeks burned so hot I thought the candle flames were leaning toward me. "Excuse me?" I managed, but she only tilted her head with that tight, rehearsed smile. "Oh, honey, I didn't mean to embarrass you. It just came up when we were talking about the wedding budget." Whispers rippled down the table like a slow leak. I caught my fiancé's eye, waiting for him to push back. He shifted in his seat, cleared his throat, and nothing. Just a nervous glance at his plate. By dessert, she was already onto her next move. "I went ahead and secured that florist we talked about," she announced brightly, passing the creme brulee. "Their work is the only kind worth having." My stomach knotted. We'd never agreed on any florist. "They're 3 times over budget," I said carefully. She waved a manicured hand. "Oh, sweetie, weddings need a professional touch. You couldn't possibly handle those decisions yourself." The words landed like a slap, soft but stinging long after the sound faded. I swallowed hard, the vanilla custard turning to chalk on my tongue. Later in the car, I asked my fiancé why he hadn't said anything. He gripped the steering wheel tighter, eyes fixed on the road. "She didn't mean it like that," he murmured. I stared out at the blur of streetlights, a cold pit opening in my chest. Accidents didn't feel this deliberate. And as the city passed in streaks of gold, one thought kept pulsing louder than the engine. This wasn't just meddling. It was a game I hadn't realized I was already losing. The mockery didn't fade after that dinner. It sharpened. At my first dress fitting, I stood on the pedestal while pins grazed the hem of satin I'd saved months to afford. My future mother-in-law circled me like a critic at an art show, lips pursed. "It's budget-friendly," she finally said, each syllable stretched like taffy. Her sister snorted behind her hand. Heat climbed my neck as the seamstress adjusted the bodice. "I love it," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Well, she replied, brushing invisible lint from her sleeve. As long as you're happy, though you know, first impressions last a lifetime. The words clung to the mirrors around me, multiplying like reflections I couldn't escape. A week later, we toured the coastal venue I'd dreamed of since childhood. The salt breeze lifted my hair, the sound of waves muffling the chaos of wedding planning. I turned to see his parents exchange a look. Then his father let out a short, derisive laugh. A beach ceremony?
Really? He said, eyebrows raised. Sounds casual.
Almost like a backyard barbecue. His mother added, your guests will track sand everywhere. And what if it rains? You'll need a real venue for a proper wedding. Their laughter blended with the surf, souring the ocean air. My fiancé stepped forward, shoulders tense. They like tradition, he said quickly, glancing between us like a referee. Maybe we could compromise. But when his mother sighed and murmured, we just want you to be respected, he deflated. I watched him retreat behind silence, guilt tugging him back into their orbit. As the sun sank into the horizon, I wrapped my arms around myself, the dream of a beach wedding flickering like the dying light. For the first time, a question I'd been avoiding pressed hard against my ribs. Was marrying him worth inheriting the storm that came with his family? The answer didn't come, only the crash of waves, relentless and cold. It started with what sounded like generosity. Over coffee one Saturday morning, his parents announced they wanted to help with the wedding costs. Think of it as our gift to you, his mother said, sliding a neatly folded check across the table like a peace offering. I felt a cautious relief. Maybe, finally, we were turning a corner. The first strings appeared days later. A text pinged my phone while I was sketching invitation designs. We'd like you to reconsider the menu. Steak and salmon are more appropriate than your casual choices. Another message followed. Also, that beach venue is still a concern. We can't put our name on something so unpredictable. I showed the texts to my fiancé. He rubbed the back of his neck, eyes darting away.
They're just worried about appearances, he said.
Maybe we can tweak a few things, but the suggestions hardened into demands. His father called one evening, voice tight. If you insist on that beach nonsense, we'll have to rethink our contribution. My chest tightened. So the money comes with conditions? I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. Silence stretched before he replied, we simply expect a wedding that reflects the family's reputation. When I hung up, my hands shook. I turned to my fiancé. This isn't a gift, it's blackmail. He flinched like I'd slapped him. They're my parents, he said, frustration cracking through.
I can't just tell them off.
Do you want to start our marriage with a family war? The air between us grew thick, heavy with words we couldn't swallow. For the first time, the argument wasn't about flowers or venues, it was about us.
About loyalty. I stared at the ring on my finger, its sparkle suddenly harsh under the kitchen light.
For the first time since he proposed, doubt whispered louder than love, and I wondered if their grip on him would always be stronger than ours. I wasn't looking for trouble when I found it. One evening, my phone buzzed with a message from my cousin Leah. Hey, you should probably see this. Attached were screenshots, threads of texts that felt like they belonged in someone else's nightmare. My future mother-in-law's name sat at the top of the group chat, her words crisp and deliberate. At the reception, we'll finally expose her career. Another bubble followed from his father. People should know she barely scrapes by. Let's see how proud she is then.
And then the dagger, my own cousin's hesitant reply, are you sure?
To which his mother responded, it's for his own good.
He needs to see she's not wife material, my stomach lurched.
The room blurred. Every heartbeat was a hammer against my ribs. I scrolled further, each message slicing deeper. Spread the word discreetly. Make it seem like you heard from someone else. They planned to humiliate me in front of everyone I loved, fabricating rumors about my finances and calling my career a fraud. I grabbed my laptop and took screenshots, each click feeling like proof of a crime. My hands trembled so violently the trackpad barely registered. When my fiancé walked in from work, the sound of his keys hitting the counter made me flinch. I wanted to show him immediately to demand he fight beside me, but a cold hesitation rooted me to the couch. If his parents were capable of this, and he hadn't defended me through their smaller cruelties, could I trust him now? I stared at the screenshots glowing on my screen, the evidence of betrayal more toxic than anything I'd feared. This wasn't meddling. This was war. And the person sleeping beside me might not be ready or willing to fight it. The certainty I'd once had about our future cracked, leaving only a sharp, echoing silence. A week later, their masks came off. We were invited for what his mother called a quick family catch-up over dinner, the kind of casual invite that usually meant an ambush. From the moment I stepped through their polished oak door, the air felt brittle, like a storm waiting to break. Halfway through the meal, his father set down his fork with a deliberate clink.
"So," he said, eyes sharp, "still chasing that
design hobby?" His mother leaned in, lips curved in a mock sympathetic smile. "It must be hard, dear, pretending that kind of work is a real career. Our family has always valued stability, real professions. I just don't see how you'll ever fit into those standards." The words sliced through me, clean and cold. I looked to my fiancé, my partner, begging silently for him to speak. But he only stared at his plate, jaw tight, shoulders stiff, as if silence might somehow keep the peace. A hot rush of humiliation burned my chest. My hands clenched in my lap until my nails dug crescent moons into my skin.
"Excuse me?" I managed, my voice trembling more from fury than fear. His mother shrugged lightly, as though she'd merely commented on the weather.
"It's just concern, darling. We want the best for our son." I barely tasted the rest of the meal. Their laughter floated around me, muffled and distant, like echoes underwater. That night, back in our apartment, I lay wide-eyed in the dark while he slept beside me, his breathing steady, oblivious, the ceiling blurred above me. If he couldn't stand up for me now when their cruelty was this blatant, how would he ever protect our marriage from their poison? Sleepless and aching, a single thought crystallized with the certainty of a knife's edge. Something had to change.
And it wouldn't be a small change. I spent the next night curled on the living room couch, eyes raw from a storm of tears that refused to stop.
The city outside hummed with late-night traffic, but inside our apartment everything felt suspended, like even the air held its breath. My phone buzzed against the coffee table. Mum. I hesitated before answering, afraid that the sound of her voice would break whatever fragile dam I'd built. The moment she said my name, the dam shattered. Words tumbled out, every insult, every calculated jab, every time their so-called help tightened around my neck like a leash. I confessed what I'd seen in those texts, how their latest dinner attack had hollowed me out. Mum listened without interruption, the quiet weight of her presence steadier than any advice. When I finally ran out of words, she exhaled.
"Honey," she said softly, "this isn't about a wedding anymore.
This is about control. And you don't have to live under it." Her certainty cut through the haze. After we hung up, I stared at the dim glow of the streetlights painting long stripes across the floor. One by one, the patterns came into focus, the subtle mockery, the strings attached to their money, the secret plot to humiliate me. It wasn't random cruelty, it was strategy. And suddenly the wedding itself looked different. What was meant to be a celebration of love had become their stage, their proof that they could bend me to their will. My heartbeat steadied, the tears slowed. I sat up straighter, a cold clarity settling over me like armor.
I wouldn't beg for their approval anymore.
I wouldn't shrink to fit their idea of worth. Somewhere between the city's hum and the silence of our apartment, a steely resolve rooted deep inside me. They wanted a show of power,
Fine, I'd give them one, but it would be my own.
and they would never see it coming. The next morning, I woke before dawn, the apartment still wrapped in grey silence. My fiancée slept on, unaware as I padded to the kitchen and opened my laptop. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, heart hammering with a strange electric calm.
One by one.
I pulled up every contract, the caterer, the venue, the photographer. My cursor wavered for a heartbeat, then clicked cancel. Each confirmation email that arrived felt like the sound of a chain snapping. I didn't flinch at the cancellation fees or the stern language about non-refundable deposits. The sting of lost money was nothing compared to the years of self-respect I refused to lose. When I reached the beach venue's page, a memory surfaced, a weekend years ago when I'd stayed at a quiet little rental house just beyond the dunes. I remembered the salt on my skin, the low roar of waves under a sky streaked with coral. I'd once dreamed of owning a place like that, a sanctuary where no one's opinion could touch me. Without another second of hesitation, I searched the listings, and there it was, the same cottage, weathered and perfect, for sale. I called the realtor before sunrise. By noon, I was walking through those familiar rooms, the scent of the sea drifting through open windows. The paperwork felt heavy in my hands, but each signature I scrawled across the pages lightened something inside me. This wasn't just a purchase. It was reclamation of my autonomy, my voice, my future. As I locked the door behind me, the distant surf answered like an applause I hadn't known I was waiting for.
No one knew yet. Not my fiancé, not his parents.
For now, this was mine alone, a quiet rebellion, signed and sealed, hidden beneath the steady rhythm of the tide. That evening, I asked him to sit with me at the kitchen table. No TV humming in the background, no dinner plates between us, just the soft glow of the pendant light and the weight of what I'd kept hidden. My palms were damp as I slid my phone across to him, the screenshots already open. He frowned, scrolling. With every line his face drained, the muscles in his jaw tightening until I thought it might crack.
They wrote this?
His voice wavered, caught somewhere between disbelief and shame. Yes, I said quietly. They planned to humiliate me.
At our own wedding, he set the phone down like it burned.
For a long moment he just stared at his hands.
I knew they could be controlling, he said finally, his voice raw.
But this,
I should have protected you. I swallowed the lump rising in my throat.
and tonight at dinner when they tore me apart, you said nothing. The hurt in my voice came out sharper than I intended. His eyes closed, shoulders sagging. I was scared, he admitted, barely above a whisper. Scared of starting a war with them.
Scared of losing them.
But I see now keeping peace with them meant betraying you. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy with something shifting. I cancelled everything, I confessed, my heart thundering. The venue, the caterer, all of it.
I bought a beach house.
For us. For a future that's ours, not theirs. His eyes widened, then softened. Slowly, he reached across the table, covering my trembling hands with his. Then let's build it there, he said, a quiet strength in his voice. Just us. No one else decides who we are. For the first time in weeks, the air between us felt clear. The war his parents had started would not define us. We would write our own vows.
On our own sand, far from their shadow. 2 days later,
The beach house keys lay cool and heavy in my palm, a quiet promise of the life we'd just claimed. The ocean breeze slipped through the open windows, carrying the low, rhythmic crash of waves, a steady drumbeat for what I was about to do. I opened my laptop and stared at the blank email draft. My fingers hovered, the cursor blinking like a heartbeat. Then I began to type, "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Harding, after much thought, we've chosen a different path for our wedding. The traditional celebration has been cancelled. Instead, we will be exchanging vows privately at our new beach home. You are, of course, welcome to watch from afar." I reread the final line, letting its quiet precision settle. Polite, gracious, and unmistakably clear. They would understand. The power they thought they held had slipped through their fingers. I added a single closing, warmly, followed by both our names. No explanations, no apologies. My fiancé read it over my shoulder, his hand resting lightly on my back. "Perfect," he said, his voice low but steady. I hit send. For a moment, nothing happened, just the hum of the ocean and the soft creak of the old floorboards. Then my phone began to buzz. First a call, then another, then a string of incoming texts.
I didn't answer. Instead, I stepped onto the deck, the salt air cool against my skin.
Out beyond the dunes, the horizon blushed with the first hints of sunset, the sky awash of pink and gold. Their words, their control, their sabotage, none of it reached me here. With one simple message, I'd reclaimed every piece they'd tried to take. The narrative was mine again, and the tide below whispered what I already knew. They would never see this coming. The fallout hit like a sudden storm. My phone lit up with a barrage of calls, his mother's name flashing again and again, followed by his father's, then numbers I barely recognized. Each voicemail dripped with outrage or pleading.
"You can't be serious," his mother snapped in the first message. "Family deserves to be there." The next came softer, almost trembling. "Please don't do this to us."
"We only wanted the best for you." Emails followed, paragraphs of guilt-laced apologies tangled with half-hearted justifications. A distant aunt even chimed in, demanding to know why the family was being publicly humiliated. Their words collided in my inbox like a swarm of bees, each one buzzing with panic. I stayed silent. But my fiancé, quiet for so long, finally found his voice. When his parents cornered us on a group call, their accusations spilling fast and sharp, he didn't flinch. "This isn't about a wedding," he said, his tone cold steel. "This is about respect, and you lost the right to witness our vows when you tried to destroy hers." A stunned silence followed, thick and echoing. His father sputtered, "We were protecting—" But my fiancé cut him off.
"No, you were controlling, and you cost yourselves a front-row seat." The weight of his words hung there, undeniable.
For the first time, it wasn't me fending off their barbs. It was him, standing squarely between me and the storm. When the call ended, the quiet felt different, no longer the silence of fear, but of freedom. The balance had shifted. The invisible leash they'd tightened for months finally snapped. I met his eyes, a slow smile breaking through the tension. For the first time since we'd gotten engaged, the future felt like ours alone, untouched by the shadows they once cast. The power they thought was theirs was gone, drowned beneath the tide of their own undoing. The day we finally said our vows, the world felt hushed, as if the ocean itself had paused to listen. A thin veil of morning mist curled over the dunes, and the sand beneath our bare feet was cool and damp, still kissed by the night's tide. Only a handful of close friends stood with us, their quiet smiles glowing like lanterns in the soft dawn. No rows of pews, no pomp or rehearsed applause, just the slow rhythm of waves and the salt-scented breeze threading through our hair. I held his hands and felt the tremor of something deeper than nerves. A hard-won calm, the kind that comes after a storm you were never supposed to survive. As we spoke our promises, the memories of what had led us here flickered like distant lightning. The mocking dinner table, the sabotage hidden in text messages, the nights I lay awake wondering if love could survive such poison. Every whispered vow became an answer. We had not just endured, we had chosen this life for ourselves, away from their demands, beyond their reach. The little beach house stood behind us like a sentinel, its whitewashed walls catching the first blush of sunrise. It wasn't just a home now, it was a declaration, a testament to the fact that we built our love on our own terms, not on the shifting sands of anyone else's approval. As the waves rolled in, our friends cheered softly and the horizon shimmered gold. I felt the weight of every cruel word finally slide off me like the retreating tide. Peace,
I realized, isn't something another family grants you with their blessing.
it's something you claim when you decide your worth is your own. Respect isn't given by marriage, it's earned by the character you refuse to compromise.